Hello and welcome. My name is Eric, and today we're going to be talking about variables in C++. Now, what variables are basically, you can think of them as containers with names. Now, if you have taken algebra before, that's basically what it's like, a variable in math. However, in programming, what variables are depends on what the data type you assign it. And depending on what the data type is, will determine what type of data you can store inside that variable. So the syntax for declaring a variable is like this. First, you state what type of data you're going to be declaring. And that is, in our case, for example, an integer type. So that's int. And then we give it a name. And this is what our variable's name is going to be. So let's call it my num. For my number, and then we could put a semicolon. However, if we want to give it a value, we could either do one of the two ways, and that is my num equals, let's say, 5. So what we did was, on the first line, we declared the variable of my num with a data type of integer. And on the second line, we initialized it by giving it a value of 5. Now, another way to do this is if we did it like, let's say, my value equals 5. So you do two things all at once. So if we were to quickly do a cout to see the value of my num, we should get the output of 5. Now, the two forward slashes I did right there are comments, and comments are ignored by the compiler. They will not affect how your program runs. The purpose of comments is to remind the user or the programmer what this particular piece of code does. And if we do cout my value, and then this should also display 5. So if we were to compile the program, we'll see that it displays 5 and 5. Now, let's say we don't want to store integers. Let's say I wanted to store decimals. In that case, we would want to use the type float. And then we'll give it a name again. So my decimal. Same idea. You could do it right there and initialize it, or you could do it later. Let's say 5.56. And then compile. Oh wait. Before I do that, cout my decimal. And then compile it, and here it is. It shows 5.56, which is correct. Now let's say we want to store a data type of characters. Then we would do char, and then my character equals, let's say, a. And then we'll compile it. Oh, before I do that, cout my character. And if we compile it, we'll get the letter A as the output. Now note that when you do assigning values to characters, you have to put them within single quotes. While for numbers, you could just type it as is. Now let's do some more things with numbers. And that is arithmetic. So let's say integer sum is 5 plus 3. And we know that it would display the value of 8. So if we were to cout the variable of sum, it should display the value of 8, which it does. Now if we were to think about it algebraically, let's say we're given a value of x equals 3 or 4, and another integer value of y equals, let's say, 10. And then we want to do addition, let's say int sum is x plus y. So let's delete this. And then cout sum. And let's add in, before the sum, something we can call it. So sum. Just so we can label it and compile it. And then we get the value 14. Let's say we want the difference. Or rather, before we head on over to the difference, let's take a look at a different way we could show the sum. And that is x plus y and line, and compile it, and then we should get the same result as the first line. So if I were to do the difference, which is subtraction, I could do it as x minus y, or I could make a difference variable and subtract the two values and then display it onto the screen. Either way is fine. It depends on what you are doing it for. So as you can see, x minus y, which is 4 minus 10, is negative 6. Now, do note that integers only store whole number values, and they can be positive or negative, while floats and doubles can store decimal values. The difference between a float and a double is that a double is more precise. And that concludes our tutorial on C++ variables. Thank you for watching. Please like, rate, comment, and subscribe.